Yes, we've had lots of outfield players on these interviews, but not a goalkeeper until now. And what a goalkeeper we've got! It's the former Portsmouth, Stoke, Chelsea, and current AC Milan goalkeeper. It's Asmir Begovic. Asmir, how are you and the family?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Obviously, back here in training in Italy, in Milan, and we're all okay and healthy.
How's the weather?
Yeah, it's good. Hot here. It's it's definitely getting up in the temperature, which is nice. The weather here usually is very nice, sunny most days, so can't complain with that, to be honest.
So you're back at Milan and you're training. Are you doing some sort of social distancing training, or is it just
Oh
back to normal?
no, no, full blast now. We're ready to play games next weekend, so we're excited to get back. We've been training now for 4.5 weeks, so we're getting ready, all guns blazing.
Oh, 4.5 weeks, that long? I didn't actually know
Yeah,
that. That's great.
yeah, yeah. We
Uh,
stepped up in those, from small groups to bigger groups and all that kind of stuff. And now we've been, I guess, almost a couple weeks, 10 days. It's been full training, so it's been good.
Great. That's encouraging for obviously the UK and different levels of football here as well.
Yeah,
Just see your T-shirt there, AB. You've got your own glove company, AB1, which we're happy to support. I'm going to put a link to your website in the comments in the
thank you.
description below, with the discount code as well, if you don't mind. How did the desire and the and the willingness to sell gloves? How did that come about?
Well, listen, I've been in goalkeeping my whole life. My father was a goalkeeper, my grandfather, so I was born into a goalkeeping family, and it's just been a passion of mine forever, really. And I think ultimately it's something that I gained so much experience over the years of playing and being at the highest level that I wanted to do something myself, and I think there's a market for professionals doing their own brands. I think kids and everyone relates to it, and I think if you can really put the highest level players in the gloves, then I think it shows that the level of the gloves is going to be very, very high. And we wanted to do something that I thought was appropriate because we keep the prices incredibly competitive, and I think we keep them at a low level, because that's the market. Some of the gloves now you're selling over £100, and I think, listen, for the young kids and anyone in the game, I think when you buy multiple pairs, that adds up. So something we wanted to do. It's been great. We've been going about a year now, and yeah, we're growing all the time. So really appreciate your support as well. But yeah, AB1GK has been going pretty well so far.
So is this an international company? Do you sell worldwide?
Percent, yeah, we sell, we ship worldwide. We've got partners in America, we've got partners in Australia, where we're definitely growing all the time, and the interest in our brand's been huge, and that's been really encouraging as well. And that wants us to keep improving, wants us to keep improving and growing all the time. So the interest has been great, and our endorsees are all over the world as well. So it's been a lot of fun. I think, like you said, you always believe it's going to go well and you're positive about it, but when you see such a huge reaction that we've had, then it gives us even more motivation to keep this thing going.
Brilliant. Also, talking about success, you've got academies now around the world, goalkeeping academies, which I was reading about earlier on, which is absolutely excellent. You must be delighted with the way that's going as well.
Yeah, definitely, because like I said, I'm passionate about the game. I've been in the game for my whole life, and it's something that I'm going to stay in after my playing days too, right? So for me, it was a no-brainer to open up. The goalkeeper academies have been going for a couple of years now. We've opened one in Sarajevo in Bosnia, in London and UK, and we're looking for a third location open in a couple of months. And we'll see where it grows. We might grow into full football academies. We'll see where the interest is, and there's been a lot of demand for it. As you know, football is the biggest sport in the world. So the fact is, everyone wants to be involved and have fun and be coached in a really good way and the right levels. So again, so far it's been awesome, and like it's great to give something back to the game, but also for me to keep being involved in my passion.
Brilliant. So you were born in Bosnia, is that right?
Born in Bosnia, yeah, 1987.
Yeah, and then you moved to Germany to escape the Bosnian War. Did you grow up playing football in Germany?
Yeah, so I started at the age of 5. Um, I was born in '87 in Bosnia. When I was 4 years old, we had to move because of the conflict in the former Yugoslavia, and yeah, that's the way it goes. And we settled in Germany. So I spent 6 years in Germany, and then moved to Canada when I was 10. So yeah, moved around quite a bit. Spent 6 years in Canada, playing the game, and then came over to England when I
You
was
mentioned
16.
that your dad was a footballer, a goalkeeper. Did you always play in goals? Did you always want to be a goalkeeper because
Yeah,
of
nothing
that?
else. Like I said, it was from birth really. Nothing else. Never had a plan B. So
You never played outfield, Asmir. Up
never played
front,
out
score
nothing.
goal.
I mean, just a couple times for fun really, but never organized in any way, shape, or form. Maybe I should have done a bit more of that, but definitely just wanted to be in the game and be a goalkeeper as much as I could.
I think you've done okay. See, when you were younger with your father, were you always practicing in the garden,
Yeah,
picking
so
up
that,
tips
that
from
was
him?
that was a huge key to my success, really, to having that regular coaching from my dad, because goalkeeper coaching is difficult to find. There's not a lot out there. We can't train ourselves really because we need someone to help serve and everything else. So having that, through my youth team days was huge for me.
Where did your dad play, just out of interest? Was it just
So he
back in
played
his
for
homeland?
Leotar. He played for a team called Leotar in our hometown of Trebinje of Bosnia. They were in the second division, the former Yugoslavia. Now, if you can imagine Yugoslavia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, all these teams, all these countries together. So that's a heck of a league, and then they were competing for the major championships back in the day as well. So that was a pretty good standard.
Did you get to watch him
I
play?
never watched Bosnia, not that I remember anyway. I watched that when we moved to Germany. He sort of moved a little bit more in the semi-pro ranks. He was getting on a little bit, so that's when I started following and watching him a bit more.
So when you moved to Germany, did you go into a team? Did you start training with a team, or was it just staying at home playing with your dad?
Yeah, no, no, no. Listen, I moved to Germany. I was 4, and at the age of 5, I was playing organized football. So,
Was that tough with the language difference, or was it just football? You just played.
I don't quite remember, to be honest, but I think you just crack on with it. You're 5-year-old, you play football, nobody really asks you too many questions. A lot more difficult at our level here now to try and integrate yourself into a into a good situation. But ultimately, it was all about just playing football and having fun.
Yeah, and then you mentioned you went to Canada. Was it after
Yeah.
that? Was it the same situation there, just straight into a team playing football from the
Straight
from the
into a
start?
team, yeah. I mean, that was obviously I remember. I mean, I studied English in school and in Germany, so I was okay in the English language, so that wasn't a huge transition. Of course, it was a transition. I was getting better and learning more and more all the time, but ultimately, it's something that worked out quite well. And again, like you said, just integrate yourself with the team and play football, and it's a universal language, and you take it from there.
What was football like in Canada? Can you remember? Because it's not known to be a powerhouse football nation.
No,
No
no, at the
disrespect to Canada.
time, no, no, at the time, no. I mean, you're going back 20 plus years, So the grassroots level wasn't bad at all, to be honest. Like I said, I always had that coaching from my dad, but the grassroots level was actually quite decent. The biggest problem you had in Canada was that next step. Um, if you wanted to do this game professionally, if you wanted to do this game for a living, then at the time, that's when the MLS was growing. There was no teams in Canada at that time. There was no USL team. There was no CPL team. Your only opportunity was Europe and South America, really. So it was a long way away from Canada. And, but thankfully, as I was playing in Canada, you started getting picked for those regional teams, the national teams, and then you start getting scouted.
See, just to rewind a bit, when you were younger, what did your dad focus on with you? Was it just repetition, repetition,
Yeah,
repetition, or
I
was it?
mean, that's what I give kids and everyone advice now. Just work on your basics, work on your techniques, because that's the base of your game. That's the trunk of your game. Ultimately, it's all about making sure those fundamentals and the base of your game is right, because that's something you'll always fall back on. And then as you go through the ranks and as you want to improve and get better, then of course you add things to your game.
What kind of thing would you do when you were younger, just out of interest?
Yeah, focus very much on my handling. Focus, my dad always, that's the best compliments given me. I always had a good pair of hands. I was able to manipulate the ball, catch the ball a lot, and for me that was a big compliment. So just doing a lot of handling, footwork. For me, I was a big kid, big guy, always footwork, basics, learning the diving techniques, and pushing the ball away, catching the ball, making the saves, bottom hand, top hand, learning all these techniques from an early age. And I think if you can do that, then it just gives you that strong base to really build your game on from there.
And then you mentioned you were scouted, so you were playing for the national, was it youth level? for Canada that you got scouted,
Yeah,
or was it? Yeah.
yeah. So started playing for the youth, U15, U16, U17 national teams, and that's when I was scouted. When I played a game in America, and my agent, so I was still my agent now, and he wasn't my agent at the time, but obviously he scouted me, and had a few people kind of getting in touch with my family about pursuing a game and sending me on trials. And never quite felt right, but when he called, and the way he called in the right manner and everything else, about him wanting me to go to England and setting some stuff up, that was huge. That was huge, and at 16 off, I went to England, and thankfully, things worked out with Portsmouth pretty quickly.
How did you feel when you were told that people wanted you to go to England for trials? How did that make you feel
No, I
as a
mean,
young
you
kid?
feel, of course, you feel excited. Ultimately, that was my dream. That's all I ever wanted to do. So for me, it was like, let's go, let's do this. So, of course, they had the times, 10-hour flight away from home. So I go from Edmonton in Canada to London, 10-hour flight, and you're thinking, okay, I'm on the other side of the world here. So that part was tricky, but the sooner you get into training, going with the lads, start diving around, making saves, it becomes an incredibly normal routine.
Were Portsmouth the only club that were interested in you at that time?
Well, no, I had a couple of trials set up. One was at Portsmouth, one was at Tottenham, but thankfully, I did really well from the first couple of days of training at Portsmouth, and the academy director pulled me over and said, "Listen, we want to offer you a contract, but obviously you can't go to Spurs." So I was like, "Yeah, that's no problem at all. I'll do that."
Were you not tempted to go to Spurs just to see what it was like, or do you think that would have jeopardised your move to
No, I didn't
Portsmouth?
want to. I didn't want to mess around. To be honest, I was grateful to be in England to get an opportunity. Portsmouth then moved into the Premier League that summer, and then I came on trial, and I saw the likes of Teddy Sheringham, Patrick Berger, Shaka Hislop, Steve Stone. So like you said, you gave me a contract, no problem. Where do I sign?
Brilliant. Did you go straight into that first team training, or was it with the youth setup?
No, so I was under six. I was 16, so you
Yeah.
go into the academy. But that was the beauty of Portsmouth, and it really also worked out really well because Portsmouth was maybe one of the smaller clubs, and at the time didn't have the academy set up they do now, and so it was a center of excellence. So I was given regular opportunities to train with the first team, with the reserve team, and the academy, of course. So pushing through those ranks and getting that advice was huge, and I think helped me to be better all the time.
What was the youth setup like at Portsmouth? Because it's not known for bringing through youth players, in all honesty, but
Well,
not to my mind. I might be wrong.
you say that, and that was at the time Pompey were center of excellence. Like I say, they weren't that sort of category one academy or whatever. So we were playing your local teams, the likes of Cheltenham, Wickham, Swindon, rather than playing Arsenal and Chelsea and everyone else. Um, but we had a really good generation. We have Mark Wilson, who was with me at Stoke for many years, Matt Ritchie, Jason Pierce, Joel Ward is at Crystal Palace now. So there was actually a really good generation of players coming through within a 2-3 year gap, and we had a really good, strong team. So it was actually a nice, it was really nice group of players, and obviously the club did a good job in bringing us through.
Brilliant. And who was your goalkeeper coach?
My goalkeeper, well, we didn't have an academy goalkeeper coach. The first team goalkeeper coach at the time was Alan Knight, who was a club legend. And we worked really well together. And, I was lucky enough if I worked with him, a couple of times a week. And whenever I did, it was a huge, really nice experience.
See, did you adjust to everything straight away? Because I'm just trying to imagine it from your point of view. You're just a kid. You've come over from Canada. You're seeing all these stars. You're at this relatively big club. Did you adjust straight away, or was there a lot of nerves for the first few weeks, months?
Honestly, like people ask me that regularly, and I think about it now. Like I have kids of my own, and so thinking like, what's going on through their heads, But it was honestly just I was cracking on. I was living a dream. I trained twice a day, 3 times a day, 3 times a day, whatever it was. You just do it. It was really you don't think twice. I think that's the beauty of having a young mind and not thinking about anything else but just football. So for me, it was just awesome.
Brilliant. Um, did you go out on loan a few times
I did. So I signed
during your early years?
professionally. Yeah, I signed professionally at 18 at Portsmouth, and then of course, for your development, you need to go play games. I go to Belgium. That didn't work out so well. The club went bust a few months in. Then I come back to UK the season after, and then I go to Macclesfield in League Two, and like so Bournemouth and Yeovil in League One, and then of course Ipswich in the Championship, and that was obviously my big breakthrough. And then after that, I went to the Premier League, and all those different experiences were huge for me because not only do you learn how to play the game, but you learn what it means to players to win games and get results and actually make a living for yourself. So all those experiences were a big help for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that lower down you go in the leagues, the more the players are actually playing for their own future. You know, if the club gets relegated, there'll be cuts and whatnot. Was that a shock to you, or was that always in your mind when you went down to lower league clubs on loan? I'm guessing it was a little bit different to the atmosphere and environment at Portsmouth.
Yeah, I mean, it was different. You know, it wasn't like it's different, and it's all the same pressures. You know, just in a different way, because like you said, there's different pressures when you're losing in the Premier League level. The whole world knows about it. Obviously, if you're maybe losing at League Two level, not everyone knows about it. But as you say, it has the same impact in your life because you can change your contract, you can change your future, you can change your outlook on anything. So it was all related, but just in different ways. So for me, it was, like I said, it was important to you're 18, 19, you're playing with 30 plus year olds, and for you, it's an important thing to really adjust quickly and make sure you perform right away.
And when you're at Portsmouth, Asmir, I think you're training every day with goalkeepers like David James and obviously Alan Knight's a legend, but were you just learning all the time? And then when you went out on loan, you just built up that experience, that game experience you needed to become the goalkeeper you actually became in the end.
Of course. I mean, I think I worked with David Coles, who was a big goalkeeper coach, and it had a lot of impact on my career. And, he said, I can only train you so much. You have to go and play. You have to go and learn the game because there's only so much you can do in training. So to take that next step, there's only one way to do it. And ultimately, I did that. And I think that, of course, you're learning all the time. You have to be like a sponge in this game. Even today, watching games, watching videos, making sure that you try and improve as much as you possibly can each and every day.
That's excellent. Learning all the time. That's a really valuable lesson for any kids that are watching. Excellent. So Portsmouth got into a bit of financial trouble. I think it was during the 2009-10 season. Yeah. That's a lot of distraction for a football player, I'm guessing. Was it hard for you and the other players to stay focused and positive during that time? Or as a player, do you just get this mindset where you try and block everything out apart from your performance?
No, well, that was the time. So I was, when was that? 2010. I was about 22. 22 when I moved from Portsmouth to Stoke, and those financial troubles have an impact because at that time I had my girlfriend, my fiance at the time. We had a young child. We just bought a home, and if you're not getting paid, it's not a great situation. So as you say, it's impossible just to focus on football because if it's just worrying about myself as a young player, then I would care less. I'd worry about myself. But obviously now you have other things to worry about, and I think that's responsibility grows. You get older, and you have other people to worry about. So ultimately, it's one of those things that for me it was a big move at the time. I was just breaking through the Premier League, and then it was one of the assets that had to be sold off, and ultimately, it was all about me making the right decision. Do I go to Spurs? I made an offer and maybe a big club, or do I maybe go somewhere where I can develop my game a little bit better? And that was Stoke. So that's the decision I made.
Yeah, and when you moved to Stoke, Tony Pulis said he'd been tracking you for a while, and that must have been a sort of boost straight away going into the club to know that the manager's been after you for a little while and then eventually signs you.
Yeah, that was huge. One of the big connections as well in that move was that my academy manager at Portsmouth was one of Tony Pulis' assistants. So at that comfort level right away with somebody at the club and who can help me settle in and explain exactly what they sort of saw for me and what they wanted to do. And, they said to me they wanted to make one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And I was like, okay, great, but it takes time. So they gave me a lot of confidence right away. And I owe a lot to Tony Pulis and his assistant, Mark O'Connor, because they really gave me that platform to make a name for myself.
Did you not fall out with Tony Pulis straight away after signing? Or almost? No, is that just media reports?
I signed in January, and literally in the summer, Chelsea wanted to buy me and made a bunch of bids, and I was like, how do I say no to Chelsea, right? And there came a time where there was a cup game, and a bid came in that day, and it was, decided that I shouldn't play, and there was just a bit of a argy-bargy between the club and me and everyone else, what are we going to do? Do you want to go? I'm like, club's not going to let you go. And I'm like, okay, well, it's Chelsea. So there's always things like that all go on. But that's just what I realized then, that's part of the game. There's always things going on. And, you learn that very, very
See,
quickly.
when you have a difference of opinion with a club or a manager, it's hard sometimes. The boss is the boss, right? How do you
Yeah.
manage that as a player? How do you get through that and past that? Because I think your performances for Stoke
Ultimately,
afterwards were brilliant, weren't they?
yeah, but ultimately, you just go back to doing your job. I mean, that transfer window passed, and I was a Stoke player. The club decided, no, you're not going anywhere. And the day after, we were back in training and focusing on your day job. It's about playing the game. So really, it's as simple as that. I don't think you can, there's nothing to complicate it. And that's what like I said, I learned. And you'd learn all the time after. There's always things going on and interest and people calling you in bids and moves happen, don't happen. That's all part of the game we love.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, you were really successful at Stoke, and I'm sure you're sick of talking about this, but in 2003 you obviously scored from your own box against Artur Boruc in Southampton, and you're in the Guinness Book of Records for it. I've read that at the time, you felt sorry for Artur. You wouldn't wish it on anyone else. When you score, are you thinking, "Oh, great, I've scored," or are you thinking, poor Artur?
No, genuinely, it was just I didn't know what to do with myself. I think you will imagine like scoring that last minute winner or doing something special like that, and then it's you run around the pitch and go crazy. Whereas I scored after 10 seconds after hitting the ball like 90 plus yards. So I didn't really know what to do myself. I don't show a lot of emotion on the field. So yeah, of course, it's a little bit uncomfortable because of the other goalkeeper and everyone else involved. And just genuinely, I didn't really know what to do with myself. That was the main reason. And I now as time goes, I understand how special of a moment it was, and something I'll treasure forever.
Some hit from your own box or your own half.
Yeah, no, it worked out well. I had a little bit of assistance from the wind and the wet pitch,
Well,
but it was a good.
I don't know if you know about Arbroath Football Club, but it's the closest ground, I think, to the sea. I don't know if it's the world or Britain, but there's often wind assistance down there during the season. So, if you ever fancy a game down here, I think you'll score a few more. Yeah, so you played a lot of games for Stoke, and obviously you made some mistakes. All goalkeepers do. Unfortunately, your mistakes lead to goals. It's a well-known thing. How do you stay positive when you make a mistake, Asmir? And because in football, one mistake quickly leads to another mistake, and that's why I always try and tell the kids in the academy.
Well, listen, that's a great point because that's something I teach to my academy now. I try not to isolate one thing. I think I go into every session, go to every game. I want to try and be the best version of myself that day. I want to do more good things than bad things. I want to do more positive actions than negative actions, and keep doing the right thing all the time. And I think the more you can do that, the better you get. And of course, the more leads you get, the more you nitpick, the more you chase perfection, the more you want to be make 10 out of 10 saves, 10 out of 10 good distribution decisions, kicks, take your crosses. And I think for me, sometimes what I learned was, you'd make, I should maybe save that or maybe done something different there. But then what happened is you'd have done like 9 good things, and that one was like the one thing I was talked about and focused on. And I was like, my coach was like, no, well, you did listen. You did some really good things in this game. So I think ultimately I always focus more on everything as a whole. Good things and bad things are going to happen. We try and keep the negative things, and that's why you play at the highest level. You try those are very, very low. And then making sure we make positive decisions all the time. And I always compare this to life. You don't go into an exam. You always go, what's your aim? You want to pass. Well, how'd you pass? You have to get more right answers than wrong answers. And how'd you pass with distinction? Well, you got to get a whole lot of wrong answers right. So it's about, I think, that taking that sort of an approach all the time and always focusing more on the positive side of things.
Those are great points. Just a word on the coaches. Coaches are teachers essentially, but they also have a secondary role to keep you positive and keep you grounded. Have you found that as you've progressed? Because obviously now you're working with 3, I think, young goalkeepers. If you start to take on that role of keeping them positive and grounded, if they make a mistake, just saying to them, it's fine. Think about all the saves you made or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for us goalkeepers, like I said, we teach in our academy, it's about living in our own bubble. You're going to have all these other people talk about you, and you're just going to have to just knock that off and work with yourself, work with a coach, and focus on your development and focus on what you can do better and focus on how your development is going and just all that kind of stuff. Because that's the game, it's like, that's what I realized, like, okay, it's easy for me to say now, 32, almost 33. The game, life goes on. You play a good game, life goes on. You make a mistake for a goal, life goes on, and you understand that that's the sort of attitude you have, and doesn't stop you from being competitive. Shouldn't stop you from trying to be better every single day and everything that you do. But ultimately, it's about having that perspective, and that's what we just want to try and take that wholesome approach rather than just that really individual nitpicking at certain events.
That's great. Sorry, Asmir, I'm painting you as like a 50-year-old goalkeeper giving advice to the younger
Say,
kids.
yeah,
You're still younger.
I am.
Apologies. So let's move on. So then you signed for Chelsea for, I think it was £8 million. At £8 million, that's a bonus in itself and a boost. But then, the fact that the Mourinho wanted to sign you as well, you must have been delighted, given that they'd bid for you before and then came back for you.
Yeah, of course. Well, listen, I had an unbelievable 5.5 years at Stoke, and I guess the last couple of years, things were starting to move a little bit, and people were making inquiries, and options became available. And I felt like I did everything I could at Stoke. I just thought, like you've kind of ever talked about my life story, it was always about that challenge. I overcame challenges, always wanted to test myself against the best and be with the best, and ultimately, when Chelsea comes around that time, Premier League champions, Jose Mourinho manager, Thibaut Courtois is the other goalkeeper, replacing Petr Cech. That was the ultimate challenge for me, and I was all over it, and ultimately I wanted to go there and play and test myself and work with the world-class people, players, coaches, managers, expectations through the roof, pressure through the roof, and that's the sort of stuff I really thrive off.
What was the main differences between Stoke and Chelsea? Was it just a higher set of expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just have, yeah, you have the fan base and the worldwide following and everything that comes with that, right? But it was about that having to win every single game. It was about that expecting to be the best every single day in training, every single session, winning that mini game in training, about winning that game you play, and just having to win those trophies. Nothing else was going to be good enough for us as a club there at that time.
And there was obviously fantastic players at Chelsea, but also fantastic leaders as well. Was that driven from the players as well as the management? The higher set of expectations and wanting to win everything.
You have to, yeah. I mean, we know the club you play for, and like I said, that's expected of you to be the best version of yourself. And then any successful team has to have a great dressing room, has to have leaders, has to have standards, has to have expectations that you hold of yourself individually, but also collectively. So, playing with John Terry, Gary Cahill, Cesc Fabregas, we pushed each other all the time and making sure that team was as good as possible every single day also.
Brilliant. And in that first season as well, you got to play in the Champions League. How was standing in the How was standing in the lineup and listening to the music? I think that's every kid's dream.
Yeah, no, like that also, to go to Chelsea, I want to taste playing the Champions League in Europe regular. I mean, I played in Europa League before for Stoke, which was awesome, but playing Champions League, playing against the best players in the world, competing for those trophies, it was a highlight. What can I say? It was just amazing.
See, when you're playing in a game like that, do you ever think back to when you were younger and sort of all the hard work you've put in up to that point and think, God, I'm pinching myself now? Or are you totally grounded? You don't think like that? You're totally focused?
In that moment, you don't. In that moment, you don't, because it's just about that game, that next day, the next game, the what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to go on. And I think I'm still like that now. Like, what am I doing to train tomorrow? Okay, we're playing 9 days. How to prepare for that game? I think when it's all said and done, I'll have a bit more time to think about like how it all was and exactly where you came from.
Is that just because that's what football's like? It's games finished, next game, prepare for next game, then it's the next game. Is that just what it's like, or is that just something that you do yourself just to keep focused?
It's just what it is. It's just what it is. It's the environment that it is. It's so high paced, high octane all the time, and it's just the way it is, really.
That's fascinating. It's great insight, I think, to everyone that's watching that footballers need to be focused and they need to be committed and they need to work hard, because when one game finishes, no matter how big that game is, there's always another game coming around the corner. So, I mean,
well, it's just always
yeah.
is, because it's the mindset. Like during the week, friends, people, parent, everyone like, oh, you want to go for dinner? I'm like, no, I gotta rest. I got a game in 2 days. It's always that thinking. It's everything about. I gotta be ready for training tomorrow. It's a full-time job, 24/7, 365, really, for us. And you have to be. It's a short career, so you have to maximize it the best
A
you
little bit
can.
longer for goalkeepers, I think, which is a bonus for you.
Well, yeah, you like to think so. You hope so, right?
Yeah. So Mourinho obviously moved on. Antonio Conte came in. You didn't play as much under Antonio Conte, but you still ended that season, his first season, with a Premier League winners' medal. You must
Yeah.
be proud of that.
Yeah, well, that was an amazing time. I mean, like I said, another one of those reasons to go to Chelsea is to compete for those trophies and make sure you're there against the best all the time. And ultimately, we achieved that season. I mean, what I learned, what actually teamwork meant, that's what I really learned. And the sacrifices each player has to make. It's not about your ego or how much you play or don't play. It's about helping that team on the day of the games, about making sure you train well and push each other. And ultimately, it's such a collective team effort to win a trophy like that. And that's really the biggest
Did
thing
that
in
come
football.
from the manager, or was that just something that the team had to shift to in order to go to the next level and win the trophy?
Yeah, the manager sets an example, 100%. But ultimately, it's about us as a team and the leaders of that team making sure that standard's set each and every day.
So, how did you eventually then move on to Bournemouth? Was that just in search of first team football?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything. I spent 2 years at Chelsea. I started talking to Bournemouth, and I think the manager and everyone involved in the club has said, talked to me about their project and everything they've done and their journey. And, that was so exciting. It's something you just kind of wanted to be part of. Also, at the time, I was 30, was given a long-term contract, so you have to think of security. Playing regularly again, the Premier League was huge. So ultimately, a lot of these things added up to making that decision.
And how was Bournemouth compared to Chelsea? Similar sort of setup and standards?
Well, the setup is great. The training is good. The people really, again, it's a Premier League club, so everything's top notch. You really can't knock it for anything. The pressure is different. The pressure is to be at your best every single game, and we couldn't afford any days off. We couldn't afford to not be at our best and to try and get any result. And it's about making sure you stay in the league, so the pressure shifts again and on different things. And ultimately, that was great. I had a good couple of years, filled with all sorts of experiences. Played over 60 games for the club, and then, like I said, a lot of things change in football, and clubs decide to go in a different direction, and you move on somewhere else.
See, when a team decides to go in a different direction, as a player, I take it you can't let that get to you personally. It's just a football decision. You need to move on to the next
That's
project.
what you learn. 10 years ago, I probably would have taken that personally. Now it's just part of the
Okay.
business, and that's what you learn for being in a game for many years.
And then you went on loan to Azerbaijan, to Qarabag. How did that move come about?
Well, it happened. I mean, it was a crazy summer. Lots of things happening. A lot of uncertainty. What's going to happen? What's going to go on? And how it's going to work out? And ultimately came down to the last day of the window, and I was given that opportunity, and I was like, what, do I stay at Bournemouth and do nothing, or do I go to Qarabag, and play in the Europa League and compete obviously for the title in the local league? And for me, like, let's go, let's do something different. I've been in England for so many years that something I wanted to do, and I had an amazing 4 months. I was able to play the Europa League. We built a nice 8-point lead in the league as well, and semi-final of the cup. So ultimately, for me, it was a huge experience for me and helped me get my move to AC Milan as well.
See, do you just embrace, it sounds like you do, but do you just embrace these challenges? So, when someone asks you if you want to go to Azerbaijan, you're like, yeah, let's go. It's another challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that you only live once, you have one career, and you're thinking, why the heck not? Ultimately, what have you got to lose? And it's like I said, I would have hated more sitting there for 4 or 5 months doing nothing and waiting for the January window or something, and being stuck in a position where I didn't want to be. So, for me, it was about, like you said, embracing a different challenge and making the most of it.
Brilliant. And then, as you mentioned, AC Milan, you get there and then the season gets cut short because of the global situation. How frustrating is that from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating on many levels. Those couple months have been a couple of the best months of my career. One to represent this club and the games we played, and actually results were starting to pick up. And I got into the team, and of course, then coronavirus hit everybody. So it was frustrating on many different levels. But hey, like I said, that's life. That's football. It allowed me to go home and spend a lot more time with my kids and my wife. And so you look at the positive side, and now we're ready to go again and make the most out of this rest of the season.
Yeah, you played in Milan's last game before the enforced break, which was at the San Siro. I mean, when I was growing up, we had a lot
Yeah,
of football on the TV, Italian football on the TV, and
yeah,
San Siro. Yeah,
same. Yeah.
San Siro was one of my favourite stadiums. I mean, the noise from the TV alone was incredible during the derbies. What was it like to play, or what is it like to play in the San Siro?
Yeah, it's special. I mean, it's special to be part of the club. It's a great honor, first and foremost, and then obviously the San Siro. Like I said, I was watching. That's why AC Milan, when AC Milan became calling, I remember watching that famous red and black stripes. For me, it was a no-brainer. So yeah, it was special. Play San Siro, definitely bucket list, and like I said, hopefully, maybe I could do it a few more times.
Yeah, the other goalkeepers in the squad are obviously the Donnarumma, uh, Antonio and Gianluigi. Gianluigi is obviously a household name, has been for a few years now. He's so young. Have you enjoyed working with the goalkeepers there?
Yeah, really good group. Obviously, the Donnarumma brothers they're great to work with. A couple really good young guys as well, and yeah, we're just there. We're pushing each other every day to make sure we're better as individuals and making sure the team is spot on and making sure we get the results collectively. Because, like I said, this club, like Chelsea, it's all about collective success. Nobody really cares about your individual interests. It's about making sure this team performs and competes for trophies and makes the most out of it.
That's interesting, Asmir. So, see, as a goalkeeper, there's obviously one goalkeeper slot in the team. So, in training, are you all working together? We've heard of the goalkeepers union. I think everyone has. How true is that? Because you're obviously competing against these guys for one
Of
place.
course, yeah, I think so. I think ultimately, listen, it's about respecting each other. We all want to play, of course, but it's about respecting each other. And if the manager picks one over the other, you have to respect that decision and, of course, help your teammate and help your other teammates and do what you need to do. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like I said, there is no time for personal egos. It's all about putting that aside and making sure that the team as a whole is as strong as possible.
So Gianluigi had a lot of positive press, and everyone thinks he could go on to be a very, very good goalkeeper, one of the best ever. You've obviously trained with him up close. What's your thoughts on him?
He's phenomenal. It's been a pleasure to work with. Great person, not just a great goalkeeper, just a great person as well, and great guy to work with. Someone I think can do anything in the game he wants. I mean, he's one of the best goalkeepers now. He can be undoubtedly one of the best in a short space of time. And like I said, I'm enjoying working with him on a daily basis.
Nice. And Ibra, obviously, as well as at AC Milan, who's a legend and an inspiration to kids worldwide. Is he as cool in real life as he appears to be?
Yeah, again, first and foremost, a great person, great guy. And then as a player, as a world-class player, there's nothing more I can tell you there that hasn't been shown for many, many years. But I think just the way he is as a leader and the expectations he puts on himself and what he wants to do is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, who are you playing in? Is it 9 days? You said the season starts again. Who are AC Milan playing?
Yeah, next weekend we've got Juventus in the semi-final of the second leg of the cup.
You got the excited butterfly nerves ahead of that game, or are you just keen to get started?
Excited, yeah. I think we'll get a little bit more excited as the game gets. We don't want to count our chickens just yet. What we're living in right now, I think you don't want to look too far ahead, but ultimately it's something we're very much looking forward to.
Nice. See, you mentioned that during the break you went home. Was it to England?
Yeah.
What did you do to keep fit and active during that period?
Well, you do all your fitness, your cardio work, your strength work. I do a lot of yoga, trying to keep as active and fit as possible. Then, of course, you try and also, of course, keep as keep as engaged as a group as you possibly can with all the Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's absolutely important that we can do that. And then of course you analyze your games, your training sessions from the past, and then of course you plan the future too. Like, how can I get better? What can I work on when I come back? So I think there's always many things you can do to engage yourself and shuffle your energy in a different way.
You got any particular tips for the kids that are watching about how they can sort of keep active as goalkeepers and as,
Well, I think,
as
you know,
kids?
it's tricky, you know, get tennis balls, do hand-eye coordination. Try, if you don't have a bit of grass, then of course it's tricky, but, you know, just knock the ball against the wall if you can and catch it. Make sure you keep your hands active, get your fingers used to holding that ball and making sure you can do those sort of things. Like I said, fitness, making sure your flexibility is good, your strength is good. Use this as a moment of rest too. Make sure your body is right when you go back to training, no matter what level you are. So just look at the positive side of things as much as you can.
Brilliant. See, as if any young goalkeepers are watching, what would you say is the most important thing for them to work on? Is it just repetition in terms of their handling? Is it
I think
footwork?
it's really difficult to say if one thing is the most important thing. Ultimately, like I said earlier, it's the fundamentals are crucial. That's the base of your game. Then I think the mental side is also very important, because you need to know that you're in the game all the time. Sometimes you don't see the ball for many minutes, and you're gonna make sure you're engaged and train your mind. And just ultimately, what I said overall, be a sponge for the game. You know, watch videos, watch games, watch everything you can possibly do to try and learn and be the best version of yourself. You know, I used to go to games when I was watching them as a youngster, and I'd take my dad an hour before, and I said, why are we going so early? Well, I want to watch what the goalkeepers are doing in the warm-up, you know, and just learning all the time and seeing little bits and pieces you can pick up from people.
See, during the game, just out of interest, did you just watch the goalkeeper, even if the ball was at the other end of the pitch?
Definitely more. I watched the whole game, but I definitely focused a lot more on the goalkeepers.
Brilliant. You've obviously got a lot of charitable foundations and stuff, Asmir, as well. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, well, I've got my Asmir Begovic Foundation, which we set up six and a bit years ago. We focus on building sports facilities, trying to get kids and everyone just being active and sociable. We build those in Bosnia. We've done some good work in the UK. So we're trying to, you know, make an impact as much as we possibly can. Like I said, not just for kids. We want to get people out there off the streets, be active, be healthy, socialize, make friends, play sports, and hopefully create opportunities like I've had to live my dreams. So I think ultimately it's something that can be so super beneficial all the time.
Absolutely fantastic, Asmir. I don't know where you find the time of the day to do all this stuff, but well done.
But, you know, people know me, do a lot of this stuff, and, you know, use my platform and profile in a really good, positive way, and, you know, I can still focus on the day job.
Brilliant. Asmir, you've had a fantastic career, you know, one that kids grow up dreaming about. You've won the Premier League, played in the Champions League, played for Portsmouth, Stoke, Chelsea, Bournemouth, now AC Milan. Sounds like you've worked hard every day to get where you are and to stay there. Your story is so inspirational. I'm sure the kids who are watching have absolutely loved hearing it. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.